We're going to hear from a person tonight who's been directly impacted by the United Way. Our speaker has generously agreed to share a very personal story, one that reflects both the challenges people face and the strength that can emerge when support is available at the right time. Sasha's journey reminds us that behind every statistic is a real person. Recovery is possible when community shows up with care, passion, and connection. So please join me in welcoming Sasha. They're really bright.
Oh my gosh.
That is great.
Can you hear me? Yes. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sasha. I am a daughter, sister, wife, mother, and someone who's in recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. I want to start by saying how honored I am to be here tonight. To stand in a room full of people who care so deeply about our community is something that doesn't go unnoticed. Events like this remind us that generosity isn't just about dollars. It's about people, compassion, and about believing that every life in our community matters. To understand why being here tonight means so much to me, I want to take you back and share a little bit about my journey through recovery. I grew up in a very loving middle-class home in Lambton Shores. My parents were always there for me. We were a small family, but the love in our home was very big. And yet, for as long as I can remember, I often felt like the black sheep of the family. I struggled to feel comfortable in my own skin, like I never really quite fit in anywhere. When I was asked to share my story of recovery, I met with my mom and asked her what I was like as a little girl and what she remembered about the first time alcohol entered my life. She told me I was a very outgoing, adventurous, social, risk-taking girl who was always looking for the next thrill. Then we got to the part that many people in recovery struggle to hear, the memories of the pain we cause the people who love us the most. My mom reminded me that I was only 12 years old when I had my first drink. My parents and my little brother had gone to my grandmother's for dinner one night, and I didn't want to go. Instead, I convinced them to let me stay home and go uptown with the boy to get French fries. Looking back now, I can assure you the French fries weren't the highlight of the evening. After a few hours later, my mom called the house phone to ask if I wanted leftovers. When I answered, she couldn't understand me. I was slurring, babbling, and not making any sense. At that point, they rushed home. When they walked through the door, the smell of vomit hit them immediately. As they looked around, they saw the mess throughout the house and found me unconscious on the floor with bottles around me. I was rushed to the hospital, resulting in alcohol poisoning. This was my first experience with alcohol. Fast forward to high school. This is when I first started experimenting with drugs. Beginning with marijuana, I slowly lost interest in school and stopped applying myself academically, while socially I was doing just fine. I had friends in every group of school and could get along with anyone. I've always been a very people person. But behind the scenes, my priorities were starting to shift. I also began to notice that I drank differently than others. While one could stop at 1 or 2 drinks, I could not. I was always the first one to leave, first one to arrive and the last one to leave, always chasing something I could never quite get enough of. And the weekends ended in blackouts. Unfortunately, this followed me throughout my drinking career. When I was 17, I got on a plane for the first time and moved to Lake Louise, Alberta. I had no family nearby, no rules, and the drinking age was 18, which meant I could legally get into the bars sooner. I had everything all figured out. Within my first year in Lake Louise, I managed to get banned from all the bars in town and fired from both the 2 jobs that I had. Yet being so young and living in a tourist town with no supervision from loved ones, I didn't think I had a problem. After burning all my bridges in Lake Louise, I moved down the road to Banff, finding a job bartending in nightclubs. I was introduced to harder drugs that fit my new lifestyle, and slowly but surely, addiction started to take over my life. What once felt social became survival. What once felt manageable became unmanageable, and somewhere along the line, I lost myself. Friends began to drift away. I lost contact with family across the country, and my world slowly became smaller and smaller. By my late 20s, I was fighting a disease I wasn't aware of, and it was winning. I was drinking and using cocaine daily. What I didn't understand then was that my family back in Ontario was living in fear. Fear that every time they answered the phone, they didn't know if it was me arrested, a cop calling, or if I was even dead. And when they didn't hear back from me for weeks at a time, they were left wondering if I was even still alive. I moved back and forth between Alberta and Ontario several times, thinking a change of location could fix this problem. But unfortunately, addiction doesn't care about geography. It travels with you. And every time I picked up that drink or drug, I never knew where it would take me, yet I continuously kept doing it. By that point, it no longer felt like a choice, even though deep down I desperately wanted to quit. I ended up moving back to Alberta for what was my last go. At the time I was in nursing school, I had one placement left before graduating, but I failed due to where my addiction had taken me and the lack of care I had for myself and my future. I exhausted my finances and became homeless for a short period of time, couch surfing for a short period of time. I really don't want to go into a full drunk-a-log of everything that happened, but I'll say this. Addiction has a way of slowly closing in on you. It strips away your values, your relationships, and eventually even your sense of self. I became impulsive, restless, irritable, and so self-centered with zero self-respect. Never comfortable anywhere I went, not in my own skin, not in my own mind. It was like chasing a constant storm, but never finding the relief. My drinking had taken over my life. Addiction is a progressive disease. I ended up getting arrested, receiving DUI, going on endless benders, and finding myself in very dangerous places and in situations that I could never imagine being in. When I look back now, I'm honestly shocked that I'm standing here today. Eventually, I packed up my car once again and moved back to Ontario. What I didn't realize was at that time, that drive home would eventually become the beginning of a new life. On October 29th, 2019, my 30th birthday, I went out with a few friends. That night was nothing out of the ordinary, but it did end up in a blackout. I remember waking up the next morning, looking in the mirror and not recognizing the girl I seen looking back at me. I was so sick of being tired, so sick and tired of being sick and tired. That was the day I made the biggest decision of my life. I found a local 12-step meeting, but I couldn't get out of the car. Sitting in the parking lot, crying uncontrollably, trying to decide if I should go in or not, I called the man I've always looked up to, hoping he'd give me a way out, my dad. Instead, he gave me the hard truth that I really needed to hear that day. Then don't get out, Sasha. Keep living the way you are. And then the phone hung up. That hit me hard. At that moment, I knew I was done. I was done failing. I was done letting this disease control my life. Today, I'm 2,346 days sober. Thank you. This October, one day at a time, I will celebrate 7 years of sobriety. I live a life that once felt impossible, a life beyond my wildest dreams. The gifts of sobriety has allowed me to become the person I've always meant to be. Recovery hasn't meant that life suddenly became easy. I faced many challenging times since being sober, but the difference today is that I don't have to pick up a drug or drink. Today, I'm a daughter who shows up. I am a wife to an incredible man who has never seen me use and loves me for my true, authentic self. And I am a mother of 2 beautiful girls who inspire me every single day. And now when my parents' phone ring, it's me on the other end asking if they'd like to come watch me share my journey through recovery. Something none of us ever imagined would be possible. I'm returning to work next week in a new role as a peer support worker at CMHA. The irony of that is not lost on me. The kind of support that once helped me is now the support I can offer someone else. In my previous role working the front lines at CMHA, I saw firsthand how vital the programs and services are. Supporting individuals who struggle with mental health and addiction showed me how important it is that people have somewhere to turn, especially in our little rural community. These services help people feel less alone and make their recovery journey stronger and more possible. There's a moment, sometimes just hours, sometimes just days, when someone struggling with addiction becomes ready to say, I can't do this anymore, ready to believe that life could look different, but that window can close as quickly as it can open. Yes, I was one of the fortunate ones coming from a loving, supporting family who never stopped believing in me, and through the 12-step program, I found an incredible community that reminds me I'm not alone. But here's the reality, not everyone has that access. In rural communities like ours, there are huge gaps when it comes to recovery support. That's why programs and spaces like the Connection Center, CMHA, Artemis Huron, 211 Hotline, and other community support agencies matter so much. There's a crisis in our community, and many of us see it every single day. Sometimes recovery begins with a single conversation. Sometimes it begins because someone funded a program. Sometimes it begins because a donor believed that their contribution could make a difference, and it does. I stand here today not because I'm different, but because I've been supported. So tonight I want to thank United Way for opening the room and creating a space for stories like mine to be heard. Thank you to all who gives, who volunteers, who advocates, and who believes in building stronger communities. Because when communities invest in support systems, they're not just funding programs, they're giving people hope, dignity, and they're quite literally saving people's lives. Community is everything. Addiction isolates, but recovery reconnects. Connection is everything. Connection is something every single one of us in this room has the power to strengthen, because people deserve the chance to recover without struggling alone. Thank you.